As your application grows, one of the questions that you'll ask yourself is, how do you minimize the complexity and start to break up the components into separate libraries or packages? Well, let's go ahead and walk through one of the ways in which you can do it within Flask. Flask has a concept called blueprints, and we'll go ahead and use that. But I'm going to go ahead and drag here onto my editor an empty folder that I have on my desktop. It's simply called sample. And inside of here, we're going to go ahead and add some files. I'm going to start off here by adding a simple file called main.py, and I'm going to use it to add the boilerplate that we have been using when it comes to using Flask. So I'm going to start off here by writing from Flask, and then I'm going to go ahead and import Flask. And then I'm going to go ahead and also add redirect, which we will be using. After that, we're going to go ahead and create our instance of the server. And we're simply going to assign app Flask. And then we're going to use name, as you can see there. Okay, once we've done that, let's go ahead and add a default route. So we will enter, I'm just simply being verbose here for the purposes of giving you a chance to see what I'm doing and what my intent is. And we're going to go ahead and use app.route, as you can see, and we're going to set a default route. This is the route that is going to be the default for this application, this path, which is really the root of the server. Then I'm going to call the function here default. And we're going to do something very simple. We're simply going to go ahead and return hello world. So that's all we're going to do. Then we're going to go ahead and check for name. And then we're going to go ahead and compare that to our main. And then I'm going to go ahead and simply run the server. And we're going to enter debug equals true. So this will reload when we make changes. And that's all we're going to do for this first file. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the terminal. And as you can see here, I have the terminal in the same window. And as you can see there, I have gone ahead and changed the colors of the terminal. I'm going to go ahead and run .server, Python 3 main. And it looks like we have an error. Yep, and I left the parentheses out of my function declaration. I'm going to go ahead and run that again. And as you can see there, we're now running the server. And I'm going to go ahead and navigate to that. So this will be localhost 5000, and as you can see there, we get the hello world back. So that's pretty good. That's what we've done before. I'm going to go ahead and stop the server here and move or close the terminal. But what we want to do is we want to be able to break down our application and separate it into different components, different packages. So we're going to go ahead and do that, as I mentioned initially, using Blueprint. And I'm going to go ahead and create here a new file. I'll call it read.python. And inside of it, I'm going to go ahead and import from, go ahead and enter import here, from Flask. And we're going to go ahead and bring in Blueprint. And then render template, because we're going to go ahead and use it. Now, after that, we're going to go ahead and do our setup. So I'll say here, blueprint setup. And we're going to go ahead and assign read, which is what I'm going to, in a moment, be sharing with main here, the instance of blueprint. And I'm going to go ahead and call that read, and then I'm going to be using here name. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and create a route, but note that now I am using read instead of app for my route definitions. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and use read route, and you can see there that given the naming, if we were to have a number of routes that we wanted to use simply with read, this gives a better logical grouping of all the routes, right? So the read routes are, and then you would define them, and you can start to, again, create these groups of functionality that would be outside of your main file. So in this case, I'm going to do something here extremely simple. I'm simply going to go ahead and type enter read. That will be my path here, and I'm going to go ahead and then define my default function here to handle that. So def default, and I'm going to go ahead and declare my function here, and inside of it I'm simply going to enter render template, and I'm going to go ahead and return index.html. Okay, that's all we're doing there. I'm going to go ahead and create a folder for templates, and inside of it I'm going to create a file called index.html, and inside of it I'm simply going to add in h1. I'm not going to do anything else other than say hello world, and that's all we're going to do there. Now we've created a separate chunk of functionality, and now what we want to do is we want to use that from our main file. So the very first thing that we do is we will import that. So that'll be read import from read, and that's the statement that would allow us to hook on to that code. And then we need to do one more thing, and here's where you would register, and you can have as many of these as you like. Here we will register our blueprint, and what we will do is enter app register underscore blueprint, and then we'll pass it read. Okay, now once we have it, now we can go ahead, we will have visibility onto the routes on that separate file. And so instead of doing return hello world, all we're going to do here is redirect, and we will redirect to the path, to the route that is on the read.py file. And so here I will simply enter read, meaning it is within scope. So I'm going to go ahead and save it. I'm going to go ahead and open up my console. I'll go ahead and run here again, and as you can see there, I have an error, and it looks like I misspelled blueprint. So let's go ahead and try that again, and as you can see there, we're now running. So let's go ahead and access that from the browser. So we're going to go ahead and reload that page, and as you can see there, we now get the header, the h1. If we look at the code behind the scenes or behind the page, you can see there that we are now getting that template. So as you can see there, we have now clear separation of concerns, and this is a quick and easy way using the scaffolding that Flask gives you to be able to separate concerns.